Vrinda, Shri Advaita Gadada, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 30. We are on text 34. Adhastan naralokasya yavatir kramasha samanukramya punar atra vrajek shuchihe. Having gone through all the miserable hellish conditions and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, and having been thus purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. So we have been reading the transmigration, how a person he was very attached to family life, then he dies, then he's taken to Yamalok, Yamaraj, his journey to the Yamalok. Then he's given a suitable body for punishment. Then after his karma finishes for punishment, then what he has to, then, all, again, evolution in different forms of animals. That's an evolutionary process. Then he comes again to become a human being on this earth. Now, why? Because again, to create new karma. Just as a prisoner who has undergone troublesome prison life is set free again, the person who is always engaged in impious and mischievous activities is put into hellish conditions. And when he has undergone different hellish lives, namely those of lower animals like cats, dogs, and hogs, by the gradual process of evolution, he again comes back as a human being. So the process of evolution is gradual, So suppose he became a pig, then gradually, whatever is in the next order, based on, because as in the pig, he's not going to get new karma, right? In the animal life, there's no new karma. But what happens is, after the pig, whatever is the next level of consciousness, what is higher consciousness than the pig, then we get that body, then a body higher than that, and then gradually come back as human beings. So we can see the danger. That's the reason Krishna says that even a slight beginning in Krishna consciousness can help us from this greatest danger. And what is the danger? That in the next life, we can become an animal. Yeah, because we don't know what sinful activities we've done. We don't know what punishment is awaiting us. And then once we become an animal life, then have to go through the evolutionary process, which takes millions and millions of, again, births we have to take to again come back as a human being. So just a slight beginning in Krishna consciousness can help us. We do a little bit of service for Krishna that can help us. It is to our eternal benefit. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that even though a person engaged in the practice of the yoga system may not finish perfectly and may fall down for some reason or other, his next life as a human being is guaranteed. So we just begin our Krishna consciousness. And Krishna says, at least in the next life, you can get the body of a human being and you can get further facilities to perfect the Krishna consciousness. It is stated that such a person who has fallen from the path of yoga practice is given a chance in his next life to take birth in a very rich family or in a very pious family. It is interpreted that rich family refers to a big mercantile family, because generally people who engage in trades and mercantile business are very rich. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that someone who has begun his path, for a short time he engaged in Krishna consciousness, very short time. So he is not yet finished his Krishna consciousness. Then next life, he is guaranteed to get a human birth, and that also in a rich family, in a rich, big business, mercantile family. One who engaged in the process of self-realization or connecting with the supreme absolute truth, but fell short, is allowed to take birth in such a rich family or in the family of pious Brahmanas. Either way, he is guaranteed to appear in human society in his next life. So this is for someone who just began the process of Krishna consciousness. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita about a transcendentalist who's really done a lot of service in Krishna consciousness, but not yet completed, achieved perfection. Then in the next life, he gets opportunity to take birth in the family of great transcendentalists, of the great devotees, very rare. Krishna says that birth is very rare. So we can see that even little beginning we do in Krishna consciousness is not lost, Our material things that we gain in this world, in this life, it may be some material knowledge or material wealth or opulence or material possession. It will be lost when we leave the body. But Krishna consciousness is not lost, never lost. So it can be concluded that if someone is not willing to enter into hellish life, as in Tamishra or Andathamishra, then he must take to the process of Krishna consciousness, which is the first class yoga system. Because even if one is unable to attain complete Krishna consciousness in this life, he's guaranteed at least to take his next birth in a human family. He cannot be sent into a hellish condition. So if one has begun Krishna consciousness, then he will not be sent to the hells. He will be given opportunity to continue his Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the purest life, and it protects all human beings from gliding down to hell to take birth in a family of dogs or hogs. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 30th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Description by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. So this is the reason Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that you would begin Krishna consciousness. Just a slight endeavor in this can save us from the greatest type of fear. So chapter 31, Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entities. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha Karmana Deva Netrena Jantur Deho Papattaye Striya Pravishta Udaram Pumso Reta Kanashrayaha. The personality of God had said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord, and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. As stated in the last chapter, after suffering different kinds of hellish conditions, a man comes again to the human form of body. The same topic is continued in this chapter. So this is how the transmigration of the soul. First, we have a human body. We misuse this human body. We misuse the intelligence, the free will that we have been given. We engage in sinful activities. Then we glide down to the lower species of life in the hellish planets. And also, or even on this planet, in the bodies of animals. Then again, we have to, through the evolutionary process, from one animal to another, 8 million species are there of lower forms of life. And it's a lot of suffering, very much suffering in these lower bodies. Then again comes to the human form of life. So then In order to give a particular type of human form to a person who has already suffered hellish life, the soul is transferred to the semen of a man who is just suitable to become his father. During sexual intercourse, the soul is transferred through the semen of the father into the mother's womb in order to produce a particular type of body. So we can see that the soul enters the, the enters the semen of the father, and from the semen of the father is injected into the body of the mother. Then when it meets the egg, and then the body of the living entity starts developing. So, some people say that, oh, when the child is just being conceived, it's not alive. The life comes in the body of the child after only 3 months in the womb. Some say 5 months. No, it's at the time of conception. Already the soul has entered. That's the reason the body is growing. If the soul was not there, then there's no body growing, you know. So this is something we need to understand, because many people think that, oh, till now the soul is not there in the body of that fetus. Fetus is called. It's at the conception that the soul is entering into the fetus, and that's why the baby's body is growing in the womb of the mother. This process is applicable to all embodied living entities, but it is especially mentioned for the man who was transferred to the Andhatamisra hill after suffering there, when he who has had many types of hellish bodies, like those of dogs and hogs, is to come again to the human form. He's given the chance to take his birth in the same type of body from which he degraded himself to hell. So he was there in a particular level of consciousness as a human being. But because of misuse of independence, he engaged in sinful activities. Then he was sent to the hellish planets, then in the body of animals, dogs and hogs. We think that we don't realize that there is a lot of suffering being in the animal body. We see that, oh, the pets are taken so good care of, they don't have to worry anything, better to be an animal. No, there's a lot of suffering in the animal body. And the living entity does not even know for what he is, for what is his purpose. The only thing is eating, sleeping, mating, defending. It has no intelligence to think of anything else. Only in human form of life can we ask questions. Hey, what's happening, Why I get old? Why I get disease? What's this? Why do I have to die? Again, take another birth. What's happening? Let me make a permanent solution to this cycle of birth and death. So this man, again, he's come to the same type of body. So much time was consumed in going in different bodies then. So everything is done by the supervision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Material nature supplies the body, but it does so under the direction of the Super Soul. So all these are God's laws. The laws of material nature are created by God. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that the living entity is wandering in this material world on a chariot made by material nature. So because what desires we have, the material desires, Krishna helps us fulfill these material desires through the facility of the material nature. She provides us the facility. She is Krishna's agent in helping us fulfill our material desires. The Supreme Lord as Super Soul is always present with the individual soul. He directs material nature to supply a particular type of body to the individual soul according to the result of his work, and the material nature supplies it. So we may engage in sinful activities and say, well, nobody saw me. But we forget that the Paramatma is there in our heart and he is seen. He's the witness of all our activities. And whatever is our consciousness, based on that, the Paramatma tells Mother Nature, okay, in the next life, you give this living entity this kind of body. Why? Because the consciousness of this living entity is suitable for this particular body. So in this body of human beings, if we develop consciousness of dogs and hogs, then we are creating that kind of body for our next life. The next life, we will take body of dog and hog. But in this same human life, if we purify our consciousness, we cultivate Krishna consciousness, then we are creating a spiritual body for ourselves. Our true body is the spiritual body. It's only right now it is covered by our impure desires to become God, to lord it over this material nature. Our true consciousness is that we have this intense love of God. That is our true consciousness, Krishna consciousness. That's the original consciousness of every living entity. We simply have to cultivate it by hearing and chanting. So here, one word, Reta Kanashraya, is very significant because it indicates that it is not the semen of the man that creates life within the womb of a woman. Rather, the living entity, the soul, takes shelter in a particle of semen and is then pushed into the womb of a woman. Then the body develops. There is no possibility of creating a living entity without the presence of the soul simply by sexual intercourse. So it's not that the semen is the cause of giving a living entity a body. No, it's because the soul has entered the semen. That's the reason the body can develop. Otherwise, there are so many times a person is having sexual intercourse, but babies are not born each time. It should be, no? If the semen was the cause, the semen is there, the egg is there, yes, so there should be. No, but the soul has to enter. Only then, it's only then that the child will be born. So life comes from life. Life does not come from matter. This is, we need to understand. The materialistic theory that there is no soul and that a child is born simply by material combination of the sperm and ovum is not very feasible. It is unacceptable. So we may say, okay, but then we have this laboratory grown babies. But that's okay. You still need the semen and the ovum. And only when the soul has entered, when you combine it, then the baby is going to be born, not otherwise. The soul is what gives the life, not matter. That's something we need to understand. So reading on, I'm not sure if there are any comments or questions to what we have been reading. You know, because many people, they say, oh, the child is not yet 3 months, so the child is not yet alive in the body, you know, so it's okay, you can abort the kid, the soul is not there. No, the soul is there at the time of conception. Already the soul is there. That's the reason the body of the baby starts developing. And so we get all this information from Srimad Bhagavatam. Kalalam tva eka ratrena pancha ratrena buddham dashahena tu karkando peshi andam vatata param. On the first night, the sperm and ovum mix, and on the 5th night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum. And after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be. So this is like what is actually the process, what is happening. So the body of the soul develops in 4 different ways according to its different sources. One kind of body, that of the trees and plants, sprouts from the earth. So the body of the trees and plants, that is from the earth. We grow the seed, we put the seed in the soil, and then from there, the trees and plants grow. The second kind of body grows from perspiration, as with flies, germs, and bugs. So perspiration also, the living entities can grow from there. The third kind of body develops from eggs. So the eggs is as with the birds, the birds, they lay eggs and then the babies are born from the eggs. And the fourth develops from an embryo. So the embryo, the human beings. So this verse indicates that after emulsification of the ovum and sperm, the body gradually develops either into a lump of flesh or into an egg, as the case may be. In the case of birds, it develops into an egg, and in the case of animals and human beings, it develops into a lump of flesh. So because the sperm and the ovum have united, then either it's gonna now become either an egg. The birds, they grow up, they take birth from the egg, or it develops into a flesh as us, we, the human beings, or the other four-legged animals. Also, the four-legged animals, it's with this embryo, with this lump of flesh. So we see that first the soul enters, the soul unites, and that's how another living entity is born. Because the life is with the soul, not the body. So many people say, oh, that egg is vegetarian. But we can see here the egg develops after the soul, the sperm and the ovum have met. Then it develops either into an egg or it develops into a lump of flesh. Yeah. Masena tu shirodva bhayam bahav angri adi anga vigraha nakha lomasti charmani linga chidro bhavastribihi. In the course of a month, a head is formed, and at the end of 2 months, the hands, feet, and other limbs take shape. By the end of 3 months, the nails, fingers, toes, body hair, bones, and skin appear, as do the organ of generation and the other apertures in the body, namely the eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, and anus. So the scriptures are telling us the information. Nowadays we do sonography, and of course the technology keeps increasing more and more. But already thousands of years ago, we are already being told of what's happening inside the womb in the least pervasive way. The least pervasive way. Chaturbir dhatava sapta panchabhi shutrit udbhavaha sadbir jara yona vitaha kukshav brahmyati dakshine. Within 4 months from the date of conception, the 7 essential ingredients of the body, namely child, blood, flesh, fat, bone, marrow, and semen, come into existence. At the end of 5 months, hunger and thirst make themselves felt. And at the end of 6 months, the fetus, enclosed by the amnion, begins to move on the right side of the abdomen. When the body of the child is completely formed at the end of 6 months, the child, if he's male, begins to move on the right side, And a female, she tries to move on the left side. So this is how the gradual development of the fetus is happening within the womb of the mother. I'm not sure if you all have any thoughts on what we have just read or any comments. I would like to hear what you're feeling when we are hearing these things. Anyone would like to share? No? You're not amazed that, oh, all this information is there here in Bhagavatam? Or maybe you already know it from before.
It's so long, so don't remember. That time I haven't read it.
Ah, okay. But are you amazed to hear all this information today?
Yes.
Yes, it's amazing, no?
Right.
That Bhagavatam is telling us.
Yes.
That how it's because the soul is there. That's why the body is developing, and how the body is developing in the first few days, then first month, second month, third month. So all the information is there.
Yes,
Okay.
this all are written so long, right? And now the science and the doctors, they are diagnosing this type of thing, but it is already written so long, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then you know what happens when we do of course we go to the doctors, but the way to test is so invasive, you know? It's
Yes.
so invasive to the body of the mother to find out what's happening inside. But here, just by hearing, we can get the information.
Yes, yes. So it's surprising. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shilpa Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.